Good morning. I don't even know how to say that in German. I was going to say it, and I was like, I can't remember. I learned no German, just so you know. Very little. But we're back. I thought I'd give you just a little update here. I know there's a few new faces who maybe don't even know what's all gone on, but Troy and I were in Germany for 19 days we were gone. And Troy had a successful back surgery, and we are back. No pun intended. My kids aren't here, so I can make all the bad jokes I want this morning. Just a little bit maybe about the fundraising. So that is all wrapped up. It was interesting. There was 5 people who had surgery within a day of Troy. So there was 3 from Manitoba, including Troy, 1 from Montreal, and 1 from Florida. And just hearing their different stories of how they paid for their surgeries. And some took out loans, and one young gal had bought cryptocurrency like 5 years ago before it was a thing, and had grown this savings, and she cashed in her whole life savings and got her surgery, right? And you do what you have to do to get fixed. And so getting to share our story of, we did a fundraiser, and it took 2 weeks to raise $50,000, and people were just blown away. I'm still blown away. So thank you for giving. It's incredible. I don't know who gave. I don't know how much you gave. The Lord knows, and He says He'll reward you. So you can wait for that. But it all came in great. We raised just under $52,000. And our whole expenses were a little under $51,000, so we ended up with about $1,200 left over, and that's going to go to the Rock Lake Health District. So it's just beautiful. It all worked out just awesome. Want to honor Vern. Where's Vern? Vern did so much work for this, going back months and months ago of making all this happening and doing all the groundwork and legwork and taking over this whole fundraising together with Rachel Picard. But I do just want to honor Vern because he had a huge role in making this whole thing happen. It all went well. The traveling was the worst part of it, but we got there and we got home, and everything in between there was good. Troy's surgery was 100% successful. He's got a few months of some recovering as this bone heals and all that sort of stuff. But doctors are pleased. They said he was a model patient, and that was good. And he was. You ever watch the old TV show Cheers? You guys that? You remember Norm? Every time he comes in, everyone goes, Norm. That was kind of Troy around there. Everybody knew Troy, and he just was friends with every doctor and every nurse. And at the end of the time there, someone saw me and they're like, who are you, by the way? I'm like, I'm with Troy. So I was just kind of in the background. But Troy got to meet lots of people, and it was really awesome. So I don't know. I mean, there's lots you could say, but I think that's good enough. And this whole thing kind of ties in with what we're talking about this morning. We're going through the book of Proverbs. And this week we're talking about wise planning. And Troy and I obviously had lots of time together on this trip, lots of conversations, and we talked kind of thinking about where we were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was a good little seminary student, just studying my Greek and Hebrew and learning all this stuff, and Troy was living up north, kind of a wild life and all that. And if you ever would have told the two of us 10 years ago, you two guys are going to spend 18 days together in Germany, we would have said, what are you talking about? How could that ever happen? We don't see these things coming. So we're talking this morning about wise planning. What did you see coming in your life, and what did you not see coming in your life? If you're on our church Facebook group, you saw this picture I posted a little while ago. This is 2007 Winkler Bible Camp staff training photo, and I saw this, and all of a sudden I noticed, hey, there's a couple of faces I recognize. Mine was actually one of the last. But who would have seen some of these things coming? So who would have seen... We got to talk about the Yankees hat, Scott. Where are you? Was that just a bad phase of your life? Or? Wow. So there's Scott. I think he was the first one I noticed. And there's Andy. Andy, do you know why you're making the face you're making? He's not even there. He's gone. He's left in shame. Everyone has a nice face, but Andy is very excited about something. And there, 3 rows behind them, is their future senior pastor. 15 years ago, who would have thought that this would happen? Or that little girl and that little girl would be in your youth group? Aw, they're not here this morning, so I get to pick on them. Who would have thought that young man and that young gal, they're not here this morning, are they? No. But you know who is here? That young gal and that young man. Where is he? Jeremy, did you know that 15 years later you'd have 5 kids with that girl 3 rows away from you there? Did not see that coming. Is Elena there? Did she see that coming? Oh, she's helping out. Who would have seen these things coming? There's lots in life we just don't predict. We just don't see coming. So we're talking about that this morning. Proverbs says, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. You can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. So I spent a little bit of time thinking about my own life and my own plans. So here was my plan when I was 5 years old. I was going to be an NHL hockey player because every 5-year-old boy was going to be an NHL hockey player. And there comes a point where you realize if you're not the best player on the Elm Creek Colonels, you're probably not going to make it to the NHL. And at some point I had that realization that, yeah, this probably isn't going to happen. So as a teenager, my plans were, I would like to be rich. That was my plan. That's as specific as I was. I had an older cousin who went to U of M and took a degree called commerce, which I had never heard about, but commerce is a fancy word for money. And I thought, wow, a 4-year degree in money, that sounds like what I'll do, and I'll go work in a bank or something like that. As far as I can recall, I wasn't thinking about the Lord's plans for my life. I thought, more money is better, I'll do that. My next decisions were just basketball related. So I'd gone to Elm Creek for K to 11, and for grade 12 I went to a private high school in Saskatchewan because they had a really good basketball team, and I wanted to play good basketball. And I found out that Jen is a basketball player this morning, so you have to come and join our pickup games here. Yeah, you're going to call you up. So I went there for a year, and God was planning that. And from there, I went to Providence. Why? Because they had a good basketball team, and I wanted to play good basketball. And so that was sort of my decision-making rationale at that point in my life. And I don't recall much praying or seeking the Lord's plans. But I know my parents were praying, and I had 2 grandmothers who prayed for me a lot. And they were praying for my plans, even though I wasn't. So after Providence, my first year, that first summer, I was a traveling knife salesman. As glorious as that is, that was not God's plan for my life, even though I sold a lot of knives. Went back to Providence for my second year. And after my second year, I had an opportunity to go to Russia. I had never wanted to be a missionary or anything, but there was a chance to go to Russia to teach sports. This was 1998, so the fall of the Soviet Union was still pretty fresh. And they were starting kids' camps, and I could teach sports at camp. And I thought, that sounds better than selling knives, so I will go to Russia. So I went to Russia. I was there for 4 months, working at different camps, teaching sports and that sort of thing. And for me, that was the turning point. We talked a bit in Sunday school this morning about some sort of turning points. I was 19 years old. It was 1998, and that's when I gave my life fully to Jesus. So I had become a Christian when I was 5 years old in Sunday school. I asked Jesus into my heart. But there's only so much that a 5-year-old can understand. There needs to be a point in every young person's life where they say, I will follow Jesus, not because my parents want me to, not because I always go to church. I will follow Jesus because I want to. This is now my decision. I will own it, and I will give my life to you, Jesus. So for some people, that happens in high school. For some, college or later. For me, it happened when I was 19 years old. And I said, from now on, God, my life is yours. So this topic of planning, God's plans, really speaks to our youth, to our young adults. I said this, I think, in the very first sermon in this series. There's no book of the Bible that speaks to youth or young adults as much as the book of Proverbs. I spent 15 years of my life working with college students. And this is a very important question. What should I do with my life? I can't tell you how many times I sat in my office with a young student, 18 years old, trying to figure out what to do with their life. Because it's a big time, right? You got to make a decision on a career. If you choose wrong, it's hard to retrain for another career. You're choosing a spouse. You don't want to choose the wrong spouse. So all of that is big for this demographic of people. And the overarching theme of the book of Proverbs is this: submit your plans to God. Trust Him with your plans. And I've had some students over the years do this really well. They are sold out for Jesus, and they say, whatever you want, Jesus, I will do. And I'll tell you, those are the least stressed 18-year-olds in my office. They're also the most excited, because they've given their life to Jesus. Whatever you want, Jesus, I'll do it. And they're not so much stressing about all the other decisions. And there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with that, of giving our plans to God and saying, God, whatever you want, I will do. But with that, we still plan. We still make plans. So I began making my plans. Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. We still make plans. So I had a plan after I came back from Russia. I was on fire for Jesus, and here's my plan. I was going to be a single missionary in Russia for the rest of my life. I had an older cousin who was a single missionary. I thought, that looks good. That's what I will do. So I was finally seeking God's will and planning my course the best way to serve Him. And you think that would be good. Now I know what I was doing, but I actually still was not in sync with God. The whole part about me being single, that kind of went out the window about 2 months after I got back from Russia. Haven't been single since. And the whole part about going to Russia, that fell away within a couple years, and I haven't been back to Russia since. But now that God was in total control of my life, He was directing my steps, I was no longer fighting Him. No longer seeking wealth like when I was a teenager. I was now seeking His will, and it was much easier for Him to guide me along where I needed to go in life. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, it's like breaking a horse. You know something about this? Clara, we should have you up here and do a lesson or something. Have you ever broken a horse, Clara? Do you do that? All of yours, you broke them. Okay. So when I was a kid, we had a neighbor who was kind of a cowboy, I always kind of looked up to him because there's a couple things he could do that I didn't know anyone else who could do. One is he could castrate a dog, which I thought, wow, that's not the kind of guy you want to mess with. And the other thing that he could do was he could break a horse. And people would bring their horses to John, and he would break their horses. And horses, if you don't know what this means, I remember as a kid hearing breaking a horse. That sounds crazy. That sounds awful. You're going to break this horse. I don't know. Horses do not naturally want to be led or directed, and they definitely do not want to have someone sit on their back. They have to be broken. And so the breaking takes time, right? I don't know much about it, but you get a halter around them. Eventually you throw a blanket on them, and eventually a saddle, and eventually you get on that saddle. And is that kind of the gist of it, Clark? All right. So you do this, and eventually the horse learns to allow a rider to sit on it and allows that rider to actually, pull the reins and direct it where to go. And it's, like I said, that's a violent sounding term, to break a horse. But really it does. It needs to be broken. And as people, we need to be broken as well, to have our will, our plans broken. to be submissive to the will of a rider. Because once a horse is broken, you can sit on that horse, and especially after a number of years, it just takes a little pull on the reins, a little push with the foot, and you can get that horse to go wherever you want it to go, as fast as you want it to go. It's a beautiful thing once a horse is broken. It goes where it should go. And we need to have that experience of having our will and our plans broken, to submit to the rider, if you will. For me, I was 19 years old when that happened. And it wasn't a violent, painful, awful-looking thing like this picture. It was actually a really good thing. It was a really freeing thing. And it was something that I really needed. Because Proverbs 21:2 says, "Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart." That's why I needed to have someone who would tell me where to go rather than me going where I wanted to go. Allowing God to direct your steps takes trust. See, 25 years ago, I assumed I have two paths before me. I can go God's way or I can go my way. My way will be pretty fun, and it'll be a nice, exciting life, and it'll be really good. God's way won't be nearly as fun, but it's the right way. And I would have to choose between which of those two I would take. Like somehow God's plan was some great sacrifice. I thought in my head that my plans were better than his. But after doing this for a few years, and then a couple decades, it's been 24, 25 years now, I've realized that his plans are actually so much better than my plans. And I couldn't predict anything that's happened in the last 25 years. But I've allowed, to a certain degree, God to direct my steps, and he has led me down really good paths. And it's good because the paths that I thought looked right to me. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes. This looked good to me, but God actually knew better. I remember when I learned that God is smarter than me. Did you know that God is smarter than you? I mean, we all know that, right? But when I actually learned, because we all say, yeah, of course God's smarter than me. But when it comes down to a conflict between my will and his will, I can argue pretty well with God that actually he's wrong and that I'm actually right in this situation. And so I eventually learned that God is actually smarter than me. And he is actually better at directing my paths than I am. This proverb shows up twice in the book of Proverbs. There is a path before each person that seems right, but its end is the way to death. That should get our attention. There are paths before us that actually look right. It looks like a good path, and the end of that path is death. And I'm not even talking about outright rebellion, about seeing a path that we shouldn't go down and going there anyways. I'm talking about there's paths that I see that look good to me. It looks like a good path, and it's not a good path. And I have to know I don't actually have the discernment that I need to make the right decision. So if we want to be wise people, we have to learn not to trust our own judgment, but to say to God, God, here's the path I'm looking at going down. This looks right to me, but if it's not, could you please let me know? If this is not a good path for me, God, tell me and I won't go down there. Whether it's a business decision, a relationship decision, whatever it is. To say, God, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't go down this path, but if you have a different one for me, I'll take that. And often, I think God will say, yeah, you're on the right path, that's good, keep going. But sometimes God will say, even though this looks right to you, it's not right. You should not go down this path. Even though it looks fine to me. I think I've been here long enough that I'm allowed to repeat myself. So I'm not sure if I've told this story or not, but if I have, too bad. This was about maybe 13 years ago, something like that. We had a minivan, and it was dying. It was almost dead. And I knew very soon it would be dead, and we would need a new minivan. And so I had a free Saturday, and I said, I am going to go to Steinbach, the automobile city, and I will find myself a minivan. And I woke up that morning, and God quite clearly impressed on my heart, do not go buy a minivan today. Well, I argued with God. I need a minivan. My minivan is dying. There's no chance it's going to live. I need a van. I have time today. Steinbach is the automobile city. I will find a good minivan. And I argued with God, and He let me win. That's scary. God will let you win. I argued my position. I understood His position. You're saying no. You're not giving me any good reasons why I shouldn't. I've got 5 good reasons why I should. I'm going. So I went. And I went and I looked and I test drove this minivan. And hey, it's a pretty good minivan. It's a really good price. I'll take it. And so I drove home in my minivan. We were living in Plum Coulee. It was in between our Winkler Bible Camp days and our Providence days. We were renting a place in Plum Coulee. And as I was driving home, I noticed that the left signal light didn't work on this van. Well, not a big deal. You just bought a van. Who cares if the signal light's broken? I can fix that. I had some CDs along, which are kind of new and cool, and I thought I'll put a CD in the CD player. CD player didn't work. That's kind of lousy. And then after about half an hour, I noticed this van really smells like vomit, like bad. And in the 5-minute test drive in Steinbach with the windows open, I didn't notice. But on the way home, it was horrible. When I got home, I noticed it had the dual sliding doors, and the one sliding door was completely broken, and someone had patched it up with a horrible welding job trying to fix it, and that door was ready to fall off. And the next day, I took that van, we were going off to Stephenfield, and I smoked a coyote and smashed up the front of the van. Oh, I see, God, why you were saying don't go buy a minivan today. So I hung on to that minivan. It was a good lesson for me. It was a path that seemed right to me to go and buy a minivan that day. And in the end, it led, well, not death, I guess death of a coyote, but that coyote would have died either way. But it wasn't actually a good path for me to go down. God actually knew more than I knew. That's why I need Him to pull the reins in my life. Because I'm not a good judge of what's a good path and what's not. So we submit our plans to God. But that doesn't mean we don't plan. It doesn't mean we just go through life living by the seat of our pants, not planning anything. Proverbs actually praises planning. 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." The diligent are the wise, and wise people plan ahead. And being a diligent planner leads to abundance, financial security. And those who don't plan well, who just live by the seat of their pants, might end up in poverty. So planning is a good thing. It's a wise thing. We plan, but every plan is submitted to God. So I come back to our youth and young adults. It's not wrong to make plans for college or to have a job or whatever it is that you want to do. Planning is a very wise thing. But again, it makes all the difference of whether or not you've surrendered your life to Jesus or not. And this goes not just for youth and young adults, for all of us. If we've surrendered our lives completely to Jesus, then every plan we make, we hold with an open hand. We say, God, this is what I'm planning on doing. But if you've got other ideas, just let me know and I'll do something else. Every path is submitted to God. So this is kind of where Nikki and I were at when we first got married. We had plans, but we held them with an open hand. So our plan was this: pay off my student loans. Notice I didn't say our student loans. She had the wisdom to go through college with none, and I had no wisdom, and I came out with a big student debt. So the plan was pay off the student loans, and then hopefully go to Russia, and we would be missionaries together in Russia. It was a good plan, but we held it with an open hand. And in the meantime, I decided I would go and work for Youth for Christ in Winnipeg. And they had a new position opening up, which was sports ministry, which was like right up my alley. Doing basketball, floor hockey leagues with kids. So it was awesome. Seemed like this was God's plan. So I applied, I got hired, started raising my support. If you know about Youth for Christ, you have to raise your support. And I got up to around 80% within just a few weeks, which is really fast. It seemed like a really good confirmation that this was the right path. And then one evening, we got a knock on our door. We lived in a little apartment in Winnipeg, and it was the youth pastor from the church where I grew up. And he said, I'm resigning, I'm going to go off to seminary, wondering if you'd be interested in being the youth pastor. And I had gone to Providence for 3 years. There's tons of youth ministry courses. I didn't take a single one. I had no interest in being a youth pastor. But I thought, we'll go to the interview anyways, and we'll see what God says. So we went there. 2 hours later, we knew we were going to be youth pastor couple. And sure enough, we did. I let go of the YFC thing. Nikki started working at YFC. It all worked together really well. From there, God moved us to Winkler Bible Camp, from there to Providence, and from there to here. Completely unpredictable. I could not have seen any of my path from back then. Always exciting, always good. Yes, there are challenges with some of those moves, but it was always way better than whatever I would have come up with. And sometimes I wonder, I don't know if you ever do this in your life, wonder what could have been. Sometimes I think, how could my life have gone differently? And I was thinking of this famous Robert Frost poem, which you've maybe heard. It starts off like this: 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And he talks about the 2 different paths. The poem closes, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I thought about the different paths I could have taken. I could have followed through on my plans as a teenager. What that would have been. I would have married someone else. I would have gone to university and got some silly degree. Not that those are silly for anyone else. They would have been silly for me. So that wasn't my plan. I would have got a job in a bank or whatever, and I very likely could have been one of those people who grew up in the church, but then in their 20s they kind of drifted away. Kids I grew up with were like that. I very easily could have been one of those people. I get sad just thinking about what could have been had I taken a different path. But God called me just as He calls every single one of us in this room. And He gave me the grace to respond to His call. He gave me what I needed 24 years ago to submit my plans to Him, and that has made all the difference. There's a really famous proverb, maybe it's the most famous from the whole book of Proverbs, and it goes like this: Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will direct your paths. So if you're a linear thinker like me, you like step A, B, C, here it is. You want to be a wise person? This is what wise people do. First, they trust in the Lord with all their heart. This is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You give it all to the Lord. You let Jesus have complete control over your life, no matter what it costs you. You hold nothing back. Simple to say, it's the biggest step that there is. God is not a consultant. You might hire a consultant for your farm to give you some advice on how to get higher yields or healthier cattle or whatever it is. God is not a consultant. He is a master. And our job is to trust Him with all of our hearts. He asks for nothing less than complete trust. So that's step 1. Give everything to Jesus. Step 2, lean not on your own understanding. Don't trust your own plans. We are not as smart as we think we are. There are many plans that seem right to us. It looks like the right way to go, but it's actually not the right way to go. And this doesn't mean that we doubt or second guess every decision that we make, but we have to realize how human we are. That sometimes there will be plans that look right that actually are not. And the third step, in all your ways, submit to Him. We submit everything to Jesus. Every plan we make, every decision we make, every dream or goal or aspiration is all submitted to Him. And that means saying to God, if it comes down to choosing between what you want and what I want, if those are different, we will do what you want. That's what it means to submit to Him. We submit the plans that we have for ourselves. And I want to say a word to parents. We submit the plans we have for our children. You may have hopes and dreams for your kids. Submit those plans to the Lord. He may have different ones. Your only prayer as a parent should be, God, whatever you want to do with this child's life, do that. I will submit my plans, my dreams, what I want them to be, what I want them to be like. Whatever you want, God, for this child, that's what I want. That's what it means to submit our plans to Him. And if we do this, He will direct our paths. He will take the reins and He will guide us where He wants. And all I know is that it will be better than whatever we are planning. 25 years ago, I never would have imagined that His plans would be better than mine. I think I didn't trust that He was good. I didn't know that He knew me better than I knew myself. All I've learned in the last 25 years is that when I go off on my own and do my own thing, sometimes it actually does work out okay. But sometimes it goes horribly wrong. But when I trust with all my heart, when I don't lean on my own understanding, when I truly submit to Him, He directs me down some great paths. Paths that I never would have imagined or dreamt of. So we want to be wise people. I want to encourage us to seek wisdom in our planning. We are all planning something. We're making plans for tomorrow, for this week, for this summer, making plans for next year. We're making plans for ourselves. We're making plans for our kids. Whatever it is, trust our plans to the Lord, hold them with an open hand, and let Him direct us down paths that we might never have dreamt of. He is good, and wise people will trust Him. We're going to close by singing, Be Thou My Vision. And I want you, as you sing this song, to think about the plans that you have and just say, God, be my vision for those plans. Whatever it is, I want to submit them to you. So I'm going to invite the worship team up. I'm going to close in prayer. Father, I thank you that you are not a distant God, that you are not away floating on a cloud somewhere, but you are interested in our lives. You know us so well. And Father, I thank you that you have plans for each and every one of us, good plans to prosper, to know you, to carry out your kingdom. And so, Father, for all of us here this morning, we want to submit our plans to you. We want to submit the plans that we have for our children to you. May you get what you want, Lord. May your plans come true. May we learn to submit to you, to follow your gentle guiding, that you would take us down good paths. Thank you for being a good Father. Amen.